8:42 p.m. I was staring at the second hand on my watch when she said it. You have 10 seconds to walk out of here, or I swear to God, I will scream. She was smiling when she said it. Her coworkers thought it was flirting. One of them even laughed. I think it was that guy, Jared? Julian? The one with the hair and the confidence of a man who's never been left waiting in a parking lot holding groceries she forgot she asked for. I didn't move. My hand was still around the champagne glass. It was plastic, the kind you can squeeze and feel the seam dig into your fingers. I squeezed hard. Not enough to break it, just enough to feel something. Anything. She leaned in closer. I could smell her perfume. Something expensive, sharp, citrusy. Definitely not the scent she wore this morning. 10, 9, 8. She was actually counting. A few feet behind her, the office Christmas tree flickered like it was glitching. Gold ornaments. White ribbon. It looked like a catalog page. Everything around me felt curated, posed, pre-approved, polished for performance. I whispered, "You don't have to pretend. Not with me." She paused. Then, 7, 6. That smile didn't falter. I glanced past her. That guy, Julian or Jared or whatever, was watching us with narrowed eyes and a smirk. His hand was in his pocket, probably clutching the same hotel room key card I'd found under our bed 2 weeks ago. The one she said must have been from a conference ages ago. 5. Still smiling. Still pretending. That's when it hit me. The room wasn't spinning. I was. 4, 3, 2. I should have walked away. I should have done what she wanted. Played the fool. Vanished from her curated life with one final whimper. But I didn't. Because I wasn't counting seconds. I was counting the lies. And by the time she got to 1, I had a mouth full of truth ready to explode. She never said 1 out loud. She mouthed it. Her lips formed the shape while her eyes flicked toward the guy behind her, Jared or Julian, still watching like he was waiting for his cue. I didn't blink. I just stared at her like she was a riddle with the answer tattooed somewhere behind her ribcage. Then she turned away, as if I'd already left, as if my existence had been politely edited out of the scene. It was oddly peaceful for a second, quiet in my head, like the kind of silence that comes right after a fire alarm stops. But outside, everything was buzzing. Voices, laughter, jazz covers of pop songs, people drunk on freedom and ego. The office party had hit that point where people start confessing things they'll regret by morning. I was still holding the plastic champagne glass. It felt absurd, so I dropped it into a potted plant next to me. I stood there and watched her walk back toward him. And the way he reached out to adjust the strap of her dress, like it was his place, made my entire chest tighten. I wasn't angry. I know that sounds fake, but I wasn't. I felt something worse than anger. Confirmation. You ever suspect something so long that when it finally comes true, you don't even feel betrayal? Just relief? Like, oh, I wasn't crazy. It really was happening. That's what it was. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing my wife. And apparently, I'd been losing her one day at a time for a very long time. I reached for my phone. I don't even remember taking it out. I just knew I had to do something, say something, type something. But instead, I opened my notes app and stared at a blank screen for 30 seconds. Then, something weird happened. A woman walked up to me. Not one I knew. Mid-30s, dark green dress, slight limp in her left leg, like her heel wasn't cooperating. She looked me in the eye and said, "You're him, aren't you?" I blinked. Sorry. Her husband. Lena's. I nodded slowly. My mouth was suddenly dry. She doesn't deserve you, the woman said quietly, like it was a confession she'd been holding for weeks. I tried to speak, but she was already walking away. No name. No explanation. Just a grenade of a sentence dropped in my lap, and it detonated something in me. I turned around, walked through the crowd, past the photo booth where 2 interns were making out like they hadn't just met, slipped behind the catering table where half the staff was sneaking drinks. I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just moving. I found my way to the coat check and stood there, staring at my jacket like it was a choice. Leave now, and this becomes just another story I bottle up and carry into therapy sessions. Stay, and detonate everything. So I reached into the coat pocket and pulled out something she never knew I kept. The envelope. Crumpled. Faded. Sealed with tape, now yellowed with time. I had found it weeks ago stuffed inside one of her work folders, stupidly labeled Q4 expenses, like anyone would look inside. I hadn't opened it then. I wasn't ready. But tonight? Tonight, I was ready for anything. I stared at the envelope like it was radioactive. It had been living in my coat pocket for weeks, burning a silent hole through my resolve every time I thought about opening it. And yet, even now, I hesitated. Because I knew that once I tore it open, things would shift. Not just between me and Colleen, but inside of me. There are thresholds you don't come back from. This felt like one. But my hands moved anyway. I peeled the old tape back slowly, almost ceremonially. The paper inside was folded into thirds, unevenly. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. Sloppy rushed. Pen strokes pressed too hard, like the writer was either furious or terrified. Or both. I unfolded it. And read the first line. You'll never tell him. So I'm writing this to say I'm done being your secret. My chest went cold. Not angry. Not shocked. Just cold. Like someone had reached into my lungs and replaced the air with ice water. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was someone else's. And suddenly, a memory surfaced, half forgotten. A name from one of her group chats. The one she always silenced when I walked in. M. I used to think M was short for Emily. Turns out, I was wrong. The letter was from a woman. Not just any woman. A woman my wife had been seeing. Romantically. Secretly. For what sounded like years. The letter wasn't long. But every sentence cracked another piece of me open. She talked about vacations Colleen had taken without me. Ones I thought were for conferences. She mentioned gifts she'd received that I had paid for, unknowingly. She wrote about the nights after your fights, where Colleen would show up at her door crying and promising to leave him soon. She ended the letter with, "You don't get to build a life on top of a lie, Lena, and he deserves to know." I didn't move. I just stood in the coat room, clutching the paper while behind me, the party pulsed with music and laughter. Like the truth wasn't happening just 20 feet away. Like none of it mattered. My heart was making this strange thudding sound in my ears. Not fast, not slow, just offbeat. Like it was trying to recalibrate. I didn't even feel betrayed yet. That would come later. What I felt was stupid. Not just because she'd cheated. Not just because it was with someone unexpected. But because she didn't even try to hide it well. Not really. The letter was sloppy. Emotional. Desperate. She'd hidden it in the most obvious place, assuming I'd never dare go through her work things. She thought I was harmless. Forgettable. Predictable. And maybe I was. Until tonight. Because that's when I decided I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to scream. Or cry. Or break down. I was going to let her implode all by herself. I folded the letter slowly. Slid it back into the envelope. And then, with deliberate calm, I walked back into the ballroom. No fury. No theatrics. I grabbed a full glass of wine from a tray and made my way toward her. She was laughing again, louder now, a little drunk. Her back was to me. She hadn't even noticed I was gone. Perfect. Because this time, I wasn't here for answers. I was here to plant a single seed of chaos, and then watch it bloom. I didn't go straight to her. That would have been too easy, too loud. And to be honest, I didn't trust myself not to fall apart the moment her eyes met mine. I needed more than just emotion. I needed impact. She'd spent so long constructing this glittering, curated version of herself. I didn't want to shatter it with a scream. I wanted to dismantle it with a whisper. So I stood at the edge of the ballroom, sipping the wine slowly, my eyes scanning the crowd like I didn't belong there. Which, to be fair, I didn't. But the irony was, neither did she. Not really. The woman she was pretending to be in that room didn't exist anywhere else in her life. And I had proof in my pocket. That letter was more than a confession. It was a crack in the facade. And I knew exactly what to do with it. I spotted him. Julian or Jared or whatever name she whispered when she didn't think I was awake. He was leaned up against the bar, laughing with two women in high heels and fake laughs. He wore a navy suit jacket that hung off the edge of the bar stool behind him. I moved with purpose. Casual. Calm. Just another party guest looking for a place to lean. I walked past him, paused just long enough to accidentally brush the stool, and let the envelope fall, right into the inner pocket of his jacket. It was clumsy. Obvious, maybe. But the room was chaotic enough that no one saw. And even if he did find it and read it, all the better. Let him wonder. Let him stew. Let her wonder how it got there. Let it unravel. I stepped away, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingers. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was a test. A ripple in calm water. I needed to see how she'd react when control started slipping through her manicured fingers. I watched her across the room. She was seated now, legs crossed, holding a fresh glass of champagne. She looked radiant, effortlessly composed, the queen of her little kingdom, and everyone around her believed it. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't see what I'd seen. And honestly, I think that's what hurt the most. She got to be the success story, the star. I was just the man she edited out of her story. Until now. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. He eventually returned to the bar, reached for his jacket, and froze. I saw it, the small moment. His brow furrowed. He reached into the pocket, pulled out the envelope. His fingers unfolded it, slow. His lips moved as he read. Then he looked up, straight at her. And for the first time all night, I saw her smile falter. It was brief, barely a twitch, but it was there. And for someone like Colleen, someone who curated her expressions like Instagram captions, it was seismic. He started walking toward her. I moved around the perimeter of the room like a shadow, watching. I didn't need to hear what he said. His body language told me enough. Confusion, frustration, that nervous gesture people do when they're trying to act calm while deciding whether or not they've just been made a fool. She tried to recover, reached out, touched his arm, whispered something. He shook his head, turned, and walked away. She was left standing there, alone for the first time that night, holding a champagne glass that suddenly looked much too full. She scanned the room, searching for me. And when our eyes finally met, I smiled. Just once. Not wide. Just enough for her to know. I know everything. And I wasn't done. Not even close. I don't remember walking back toward the center of the ballroom. My body moved, but my thoughts were somewhere else entirely. Some strange fog between exhaustion and clarity. You know that mental space you enter right before something irreversible happens? That sense that nothing will be normal after this? I was deep in it. A waiter passed by with another tray of drinks. I took a flute of champagne, not because I wanted it, but because it gave me something to hold. I needed to look like I still belonged in the room, even if I was 2 inches from tearing the walls down with a whisper. Colleen was frozen where I'd left her. She hadn't followed Julian. Or maybe Jared. Whatever his name was, he'd exited the ballroom with a sharp turn of his shoulder like he'd just discovered he'd been the punchline to a joke the whole night. Good. Let that sting fester. I didn't approach her. I didn't need to. The real work had already been done. The cracks were already spreading. And I was just getting started. That's when I saw the mic. It was parked casually on a stand near the jazz band's setup, probably meant for a late-night speech or a quick company toast. No one was paying attention to it. The band was on break. The DJ was setting up for the post-dinner fun. I stepped onto the small stage without hesitation. I don't know what I looked like to them. Maybe drunk, maybe overconfident. Some guy who shouldn't be standing under lights, interrupting the flow of the night. But nobody stopped me. Nobody questioned me. And that was their mistake. I tapped the mic. The soft thump-thump echoed through the room. Conversations died off. Heads turned. And for a second, it felt like the air held its breath. "Hi," I said, smiling the way you do when you've already decided the consequences don't matter. "Sorry to interrupt. I wasn't asked to speak tonight, but I figured, hey, it's a party. And sometimes, you just need to say a few words to the people who matter." A few polite chuckles. Most of them fake. They didn't know me. I wasn't part of their glossy ecosystem. I was an outsider wearing a decent pair of shoes and a 1,000-yard stare. "I've been coming to these events for a few years now," I continued. "Always as a guest. Never the main act. I'm not flashy. Not loud. I don't close deals or dazzle clients or win quarterly awards. I've just been watching." I paused. Watching her. She was rooted to the floor like someone had nailed her heels down. Eyes wide. Hands trembling slightly around her glass. She knew what was coming. Or maybe she just feared what she couldn't predict. "But tonight," I said, "I wanted to raise a glass. Not to success. Not to innovation. But to clarity." I lifted the flute. Smiled wider. To the moment when the mask slips, and you finally see someone for who they are. To the strangers we sleep beside. To the lies that grow legs and wander off without a leash. Gasps. Laughter. Confusion. The crowd didn't get it. But she did. I locked eyes with her. And I swear, she shook her head. Barely. A small twitch of panic. A silent plea. I wasn't cruel. I didn't name her. Didn't shame her. I wasn't here to scorch earth. Not yet. I just wanted to light the match and let her feel the heat. To new beginnings, I finished. I sipped the champagne. Bitter. Warm. Perfect. And then I stepped off the stage, handed the mic to the DJ like it was nothing, and walked past her without a word. She didn't follow me this time. She couldn't. Because for once, I had the power, and I had no idea what I was going to do with it next. The doorman barely looked at me when I returned home that night. I guess I still looked like I belonged somewhere. Still had the tie. Still smelled like cologne. Still wore the quiet exhaustion of a man who went to his wife's work party and came back as something else. I didn't turn the lights on when I got inside. I wanted the silence. I wanted the dark. It felt more honest than anything I'd experienced in months. The apartment smelled like her shampoo and the citrus candle she swore helped her focus on client calls. I sat on the couch, kicked off my shoes, and stared at nothing. No music. No TV. No distractions. Just the weight of everything finally pressing down without resistance. My phone buzzed once. Then again. Then nothing. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. Let her squirm. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. The ice in the glass I poured melted untouched. I kept thinking about the letter. Not just what it said, but how long she'd been hiding something that real, that layered. And the fact that it wasn't about him, the man at the party, but her. The version of her she buried so deeply I didn't even know where to begin looking for it. But I wasn't angry. Not in the way people expect. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted truth. And not even from her. From myself. I wanted to know when I stopped being a person to her. When I became a placeholder. A prop. The background of her curated success. And that's when the door opened. 2:14 a.m. She walked in like she lived there. Which, to be fair, she did. But it still felt intrusive, like someone breaking into a version of our home I'd finally made peaceful for the first time in months. She didn't speak right away. Just stood there in the doorway, her heels in one hand, coat draped over the other, eyes scanning the dim room like she wasn't sure if I was real or imagined. Her mascara was smudged. Not from crying. From time. From sweat. From effort. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly, as if that hadn't been an option 100 times before tonight. I didn't answer. She stepped further in. "I didn't know he'd read it," she added, voice shaky. "That wasn't supposed to happen like that." I finally turned my head. "That's what you're worried about?" I asked. "How it happened?" She opened her mouth, closed it again, like she realized she was still playing chess while I had flipped the board and walked away from the table. "I'm sorry," she said. Flat. Rehearsed. "Who's M?" I asked. Her body tensed, like the syllable hit something she hadn't prepared for. She swallowed hard, slowly set her heels down, and didn't respond. "Don't lie to me," I said, and it came out softer than I meant it. Almost tired. "Just don't lie. Not anymore." She looked around the apartment like she was hoping for a distraction, some anchor to shift the weight of the moment. But there was nothing left here to hold on to. No pictures. No warmth. No marriage. Finally, she sat across from me. She was someone I didn't plan to fall in love with, she whispered. I blinked. Slowly. Measured. "You cheated." "I didn't mean to." "You never do," I replied. The silence that followed was so thick it made the air feel hard to breathe. She kept looking at me like I was going to erupt. But I didn't. I just watched her. Not the way I used to. Not with love. With distance. With fascination. Like watching someone try to swim in a pool they've drained themselves. "I think I started seeing her because I didn't feel like me anymore," she said eventually. "You stopped seeing me." "I saw you," I said. "You just hated what I saw." Her face twisted, something between shame and resentment. And for once, she didn't have a comeback. I stood up, walked past her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. Because I didn't want to see her cry. Not because it hurt me, but because I no longer believed her tears were real. The next morning, I didn't pack a bag. I didn't write a dramatic letter or leave a suitcase by the door. I didn't even slam the door when I left. I just walked out, quietly, like someone leaving a party they never wanted to attend in the first place. There was no plan, no destination, just motion. I walked 3 blocks with no real purpose, sat on a bench outside a 24-hour pharmacy, and watched the early commuters pass by. They looked tired, robotic, unaware. Just people chasing tasks, routines, fake deadlines. And for once, I felt completely detached from it all. Like I wasn't one of them anymore. I didn't go to work. I didn't check my emails. I turned off my phone. Not just silenced, powered it off. Like cutting oxygen to a fire I'd spent years accidentally feeding. I was done being reachable. I didn't want to be a number in her contacts anymore. I didn't want to be a fallback. I didn't want to be anything she could explain. At 9:03 a.m., I walked into a small downtown library I hadn't stepped foot in since I was a teenager. It was quiet, empty, just the way I needed it. I found an old desk in the corner near the periodicals and sat there for hours, doing nothing, just breathing, existing, remembering what that felt like without her orbit pulling every thought off course. Around noon, I bought a cheap burner phone from a convenience store, activated it, and texted one number, my brother. Just said, I'm fine. Just clearing my head. Don't tell anyone. He didn't reply, which told me he understood. Or maybe he didn't. But he respected it. That was enough. Back at the apartment, I imagined her walking from room to room like a ghost in her own life. Opening closets, checking drawers, looking for some trace of me, and finding nothing. No note, no message, no trail. But I did leave something behind. Not for her. For me. On my side of the bed, tucked beneath the mattress, was a single envelope. Blank on the outside. Inside, a photograph. The only one I ever really loved. It was from a camping trip we took 6 years ago, before the promotions, before the rebrands, before the endless excuses and the second phones and the lipstick that didn't belong to me. In the photo, she's wearing no makeup, her hair's a mess, and she's laughing so hard she's nearly out of frame. I'm holding the camera, blurry in the reflection of her sunglasses. I left that photo where I knew she'd find it, because I wanted her to remember what she destroyed. Not out of cruelty, not even revenge. Just witness. When people betray you, they always try to rewrite the past. They tell themselves it was never really that good, that they were already drifting, that love had already died. But that photo, that one was immune. It was undeniable, and I knew her well enough to know it would haunt her more than anything I could ever say. I spent the rest of the day walking. Through side streets, over bridges, past bakeries and flower stalls, and forgotten pieces of the city. And the entire time, I didn't think about where she was, or what lie she might be telling herself next. I thought about who I was becoming. Somewhere between mile 5 and 6, I realized something strange. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. Not because I'd healed, not because I'd forgiven, but because I'd finally done the one thing she never expected. I disappeared without asking for permission. And I knew, even if she never said it out loud, that absence would be louder than anything I could have screamed at her. A week passed before I even thought about checking the old phone again. It sat in the bottom of my backpack, buried beneath a half-eaten protein bar and a tourist map I picked up just for fun somewhere in northern Michigan. I'd been driving for days. No plan, no real destination. Just city signs and radio static and the unfamiliar sound of my own thoughts filling the space where her voice used to echo. When I turned the phone on, the notifications poured in like a flood I already knew was coming. Missed calls, dozens of texts, some angry, some pleading, some full of promises I didn't need to read to know they were hollow. The last one was 3 days old. If you don't come back, I'll assume it's over. I stared at it for a while, not because I didn't know the answer, but because, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain it. I powered the phone off again. There was a small lakeside town not far from where I'd stopped for gas. I ended up staying. Rented a room above a bookstore with a crooked front door and an owner who didn't ask questions. I started reading again. Actual books, not headlines or Slack messages. I ate slow breakfasts, walked barefoot in the cold grass, and wrote in a journal I bought on a whim from a dusty shelf labeled $1 or less. The entries weren't poetic. They weren't dramatic. They were simple things. Today I saw a kid chase a paper airplane across the pier like it was made of gold. I think I might be okay. By the 3rd week, I stopped checking the calendar. Days just became light and dark, meals and music, pages and silence. And somehow, without any formal declaration, I started becoming someone new. Someone I liked. I didn't need closure from her. I didn't want revenge. I didn't care if she cried or healed or spun the story in her favor. That chapter was closed, and I was already in the middle of writing another one. One afternoon, while sitting on a bench by the water, I watched a couple, maybe 20 years older than me, feed crackers to ducks. They didn't talk much, just sat next to each other, content in the quiet. No performative laughter, no borrowed attention, just being. And for the first time in years, I realized something. I want that someday. Not today, but someday. Not the fireworks, not the chaos, not the high-stakes drama. Just real. Messy, flawed, ordinary, honest real. Maybe I had to lose her to find out I was never lost to begin with. Maybe I had to be given 10 seconds to leave, just so I'd learn what it felt like to finally arrive somewhere that felt like mine. And now? Now I know what I'm looking for. And more importantly, I know I'll never settle for less again.